Will Zimbabwe surrender former First Lady to South African authorities? And the UN resolves to scale up its presence in Libya. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme, IMF Chief Christine Lagarde praises South Africa's economic reform plan. And in sports, Felix Kamagambo elected new Zimbabwe Football Association president. We begin the bulletin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where more than 40 million people are eligible to cast their vote on Sunday. The long-awaited elections that were delayed several times.
The electoral calendar says the electoral campaign ends on December 21st, 2018 at midnight, and we cannot understand that one person, governor or not, violates that decision which guarantees everyone and does so in a loud voice.
On Wednesday, Kinshasa Governor Andre Kimbuta ordered a halt to campaigning in the city ahead of the polls for security reasons, a move opposition supporters said was an attempt to meddle in the race. The Secretary General of the Union for Democracy and Social Progress, Jean-Marc Kabund, assured supporters of a Tshisekedi win following the 23rd of December election and warned of unrest if they announced a victory for ruling coalition party candidate Emmanuel Ramazani Shadari. According to the Constitution, the second term of the incumbent, Joseph Kabila, expired in 2016 and is due to step down after 18 years in power. If a successor is elected, it would be the DRC's first democratic transfer of power. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
The former First Lady of Zimbabwe, Grace Mugabe, is now a wanted person. A warrant for her arrest has been issued by South Africa following the dissolution of her diplomatic immunity by the state's prosecuting authority. She's facing charges of allegedly assaulting Gabriella Engels, a young model in a Johannesburg hotel last year. The former First Lady said it was an act of self-defense and described the model as intoxicated at the time of the alleged attack. Grace Mugabe was later allowed to return home after applying for diplomatic immunity. However, that immunity was overturned by a court this year after the said victim challenged the decision. The police say that they're seeking Interpol's help to enforce the warrant. Well, let's now get the latest on this story with CGTN's Farai Mwakatuya on Zimbabwe's response to the arrest warrant. Farai, has there been an official response to South Africa's court decision?
Well, Karen, nothing coming out of the presidency yet or any formal communication, but what we did see earlier this morning was the Deputy Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Honorable Energy Mutori, taking to his Twitter account, and he said there that we make it clear that Zimbabwe will not smile on any attempt to embarrass, degrade or harass the former President Robert Mugabe or his immediate family. That's the response we've had so far, and I think if we take look at the terminology or the words that he's used there, one would assume that he's perhaps speaking on behalf of or expressing the views of government, being a minister in that very government. So he's of the view that Zimbabwe will not smile on this attempt, which they see as an attempt to harass or to embarrass the former president and his immediate family. So that's what we have so far. Nothing yet coming out of the Mugabe family, Karen.
And Farai, South Africa and Zimbabwe enjoy healthy diplomatic relations, including an extradition agreement. How's that likely to pan out?
Well, I think it could be a possibly tricky situation, but I think what you say there, a very close diplomatic and political relations, also very economic, and one would imagine that because Zimbabwe seems reluctant to embarrass or to harass or to degrade the former president and would like in many ways to protect him and to protect his family, they might seek a diplomatic solution to this or an arrangement where perhaps South Africa the South African authorities don't end up having to compel the Zimbabwean authorities to hand over the former First Lady. If that happens, then Zimbabwe would need to be bound by international laws and be required to do that. So I would imagine that behind the scenes there might be some diplomatic shuffling or some sort of arrangement being made where it doesn't have to come to that, where it doesn't have to come to a situation where the former First Lady, where the Zimbabwean government is forced to hand over or called on to hand over the former First Lady. That is what my view and what I expect will happen, because certainly from what we're seeing, the indications coming out of this minister and his tweet is that Zimbabwe would be reluctant to do that. We again still wait formal communication, perhaps coming out of the presidency, and we'll be on the lookout for that. But as it stands, certainly the thinking is that Zimbabwe is not keen to accede to the demands, if they are made, for the former First Lady to be handed over.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. That was CGTN's Farai Mwakatuya there. Moving on to other news, UN Deputy Emergency Relief Coordinator Ursula Mueller has said that the UN is ready to scale up its presence across Libya. The UN Deputy Emergency Coordinator, however, said that the world body needs more access, especially in the country's southern region. Mueller reported deplorable living conditions at the Al-Falah camp for internally displaced people, which she visited along with two senior UN development officials. The senior UN delegation visited Libya last week on a 4-day mission and emphasized the UN's intention to support a peaceful transition and stability in Libya. The UN officials met with Libyan Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj, government officials and women rights organizations.
We stand ready to scale up even more across the country, but we need more access, especially in the south. We have discussed the need for unfettered access for the United Nations and humanitarian partners with senior government officials. Armed groups must also facilitate humanitarian assistance and access. While there are needs across the country, vulnerability is highest in the south. The situation in the south is complex. A failure to address the needs of the populations in the south would only lead to further destabilization of the entire country.
Well, let's get more on what's in store for Libya's neighbours with CGTN's Yasser Hakim. Yasser, let's start with Egypt's relations with Libya amid these tensions. How has Egypt been able to connect with its neighbour? Yasser, I'll repeat that question. I hope you're still there. Let's start with Egypt's relations with Libya amid these tensions. How has Egypt been able to connect with its neighbour? Okay, well, apologies there. We seem to have lost CGTN's Yasser Hakim there. Moving on now to another story. Let's go to Madagascar. And in a new, interesting twist, both candidates in Madagascar's presidential election have declared themselves winners in the fierce battle for the top position in the island nation. The two factions have been trading fraud allegations against each other. Analysts warn that such sentiments could spill into instability. The EU Observer Mission has called for calm from the candidates and their supporters. Rajoelina won 39.23% of the first round vote, while Ravelo Manana came in second with 35.35%. The counting exercise has kicked off and provisional results for the runoff are expected before the end of the year.
The candidate I have supported has won here in our neighborhood. He has led with a huge margin and it is very important for us. We needed change in governance.
We are now waiting for our candidate number 13 and the satisfactory results. We hope that all the young people in the neighborhood will get jobs.
A United Nations 2018 World Drug Report shows that West and Central Africa are being hit with new and alarming trends in drug trafficking. It's also warned that the region is becoming a transit hub for global drug trade and that drug seizures and opioid use is on the rise. CGTN's Nick Harper reports now from New York.
The last time the UN Security Council was briefed on drugs and their potential destabilising influence was in December 2013. Since then, West and Central Africa has seen an increase in both the flow of drugs through the region and the number of people who are using them. The Executive Director for the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, Yuri Fedotov, said the region now accounted for 87% of pharmaceutical opioids seized globally. Criminal networks were branching out, he said, not just moving cocaine and heroin through Africa en route to Europe, but also the opioid painkiller tramadol. And he said Lagos and Accra's airports were now among the main seizure points for heroin. He said drugs had disruptive and destabilising effects on governance, security, economic growth and public health. UNODC says drug use has increased to more than 34 million cannabis users and 1.8 million cocaine users in West and Central Africa since 2016. Other problem areas mentioned were Guinea-Bissau, northern Mali and the wider Sahel region. Now these last two are of particular concern to the UN. They already are hotspots for organised crime and militant groups. The UN political coordinator Rodney Hunter, who represents the United States, mentioned them and spoke about how the drugs trade can fund criminal networks, which in turn leads to increased instability. Executive Director Fedotov therefore urged the Security Council to stay engaged in finding urgent and determined ways to combat the drugs trade in West and Central Africa. Nick Harper, CGTN, New York.
We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including Somalia's troubled southwest region elects a new leader. And a gala dinner to strengthen friendship and diplomatic relations between China and Morocco.
My home country lies at the foot of Africa, the southernmost tip of our beautiful continent, and the unique point at which two great oceans meet. Now on a clear day in Cape Town, you can just make out Robben Island, the place where Nelson Mandela was jailed for so long. South Africa has changed so much in the years since then, but it is this country's history that shaped me and took me into reporting. I'm inspired by Africa's men and women of courage. It's the everyday hero who brings out my passion. The creatives, the decision makers, the risk takers who are shaping a bright African future. I see them in Cape Town, I see them in the pulsating city of Johannesburg, I see them across the continent, and I know our time has come.
CGTN is a platform where African voices can speak for themselves and take their stories to the world. My name is Lindy Mtongana, and I'm a news anchor and reporter for CGTN.
Let's go to Somalia now, where a former government minister has been elected president of the southwest state after beating 4 other candidates in a hotly contested race. His main challenger, former Al-Shabaab deputy leader Mukhtar Robow, is still behind bars. Let's now go to Abdulaziz. He will tell us more about what's happening. Analysts predicted that Abdulaziz Hassan Mohammed's victory after Mukhtar Robow's arrest. Can you tell us more about that? The timing of his arrest has caused tensions, hasn't it?
Well, Karen, you're right. His arrest, Mukhtar Robow's arrest, caused massive tension in that troubled region, as you've mentioned it. And the troubles in that region began a few months back when the former leader of that region, Sharif Hassan, announced that he was not contesting the election and that he was resigning as the president of that region, leaving the stage now for a big showdown between Mukhtar Robow on one end and Abdulaziz Laftagaren, the current elected president, for a major showdown. Now, Robo enjoyed massive support from predominantly his clan, that is the vast majority in that region, and it's why the central government here in Mogadishu warned him that he should not contest that election, but he was adamant that he's going to run for that vote. But that's why the Mogadishu government here decided to arrest him and bring him back here with the statement being released a few days later, indicating that Robo was still facing under international sanctions, and that he was violating the terms of his surrender, that included that he should not bring on board armed soldiers or armed fighters into that region. So his arrest triggered a massive tension in that area, the deaths of 12 people. His arrest is still being debated here among members of parliament. He's still under government supervision here in Mogadishu. He has not been released, and terms of his surrender are still being reviewed. We don't know whether he will be released now that the elections are over, but the deaths of 12 people in Baidoa is still alarming, and it's still one thing that members of parliament here are debating about, Karen.
Okay, well, the deaths of 12 people, but Wednesday's election took place without any other major incidents. What kind of security measures were in place?
Well, the government was not putting anything to chance at this stage, because 3 days of violent protest that was recorded in Baidoa left 12 people dead. So there was the government didn't want to see any escalation or any embarrassment taking place in that region, and it sent a contingent of police, well-armed troops from Mogadishu to that area to oversee the election. Other than that, there was the African Union troops from Ethiopia who secured the area in and around of Baidoa. The city was marred by violence in the last weeks because of Robo's arrest, so the government didn't want anything to happen at that stage. And also on the other end, the militant group Al-Shabaab has been known to stage deadly attacks in that region, including a double suicide bomb last month that killed 30 people. So security was not put to chance. Ethiopian troops and the Somali government played a role in ensuring that the election took place without any interruptions.
And finally, is Abdulaziz Hassan Mohammed someone who will bring stability as a leader in the southwest region, would you say?
Well, Karen, Abdulaziz Mohammed Hassan, also known as Laftagaren by many politicians here in the country, is not the average Somali politician. He is a veteran politician, was served as a member of parliament since the government, the transitional national government to the transitional federal government, and now to the federal government. So he's a seasoned lawmaker and one who has experience of working in a different government capacity as a minister, deputy minister and state minister. So he's not someone who's new to politics, and that's why experts are of the view that despite the fact that he doesn't enjoy currently the clan's support in that region owing to the recent events in that area, many are of the view that he is a politician, he's now a regional leader who can be able to address the immense challenges facing that area. And the fact that he's in support and in good working relations with the federal government of Mogadishu itself is an indicator that he might be the right candidate, might be the right leader to forge the path for the southwest people of Somalia. So many are optimistic that he will make changes in that region, Karen.
Okay, Abdulaziz, thank you very much for that update. Well, let's now go back to the Libya story. The UN says it's ready to scale up its presence in that country. But for more on what's in store for Libya's neighbours, let's go now to CGTN's Yasser Hakim. Yasser, let's start with Egypt's relations with Libya amid these tensions. How has Egypt been able to connect with its neighbour?
Yes, obviously any events that happen in Libya would affect Egypt, and Egypt has been in constant talks and meetings with the Libyan leaders and also receiving on a continuous basis the officials from Libya, from both sides of the Libyan spectrum. You understand there's two parliaments, two leaderships, and obviously two armies. And Egypt has been working with both, trying to forge some kind of a unity between both sides, and has also been working with the neighbors, the Libya's neighbors group, which includes Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, but more active being Tunisia and Egypt from the group in trying to restore peace and stability in Libya and trying to help in the in bringing the feuding factions together on an agreement, obviously in coordination with the UN. There's also the security issues that Egypt has been trying to handle with the Libyan side, especially the border issues and the cross-border confrontations and infiltration from all kinds of groups from both sides. So there has been a lot of coordination in both Egypt and Libya on the political side and the economic as well, trying to provide all kinds of support, economic support to Libya through these tough times, and also in trying to work on the rebuilding projects and real estate issues and reconstruction of Libya because of the war.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much. That was CGTN's Yasser Hakim there. Now to Togo. The West African nation's election comes amidst political unrest which has lasted for over a year. Earlier this month, a coalition of 14 opposition political parties called for postponement of the elections. Religious groups have voiced their support to the postponement to prevent an escalation of violence. But the government is resolute. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports now from Accra.
The ongoing parliamentary vote in Togo was scheduled to be held in July 2018. It was, however, postponed, and ECOWAS called for polling to take place on 20th December. The coalition of 14 opposition parties have boycotted the votes and have urged their supporters to do the same. The opposition parties have questioned the credibility of the voters' roll and the independence of the Electoral Commission. At least 4 people were killed when opposition supporters clashed with the security forces in the capital Lomé early this month. It happened during a protest against the parliamentary vote. At least 8,000 soldiers and police have been deployed across the country to ensure the safety of the parliamentary polls. Togo has seen a series of protests and violence since 2017. The opposition parties are demanding for a return to the country's constitution, which imposes limits on presidential terms to 2. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Nigeria's former Chief of Defence Staff, Air Chief Marshal Alex Bade, has been murdered on the outskirts of the nation's capital, Abuja. CGTN's Phila Haza has more on that story.
According to the spokesperson of the Nigeria Air Force, Ibikunle Daramola, Mr. Bade died from gunshot wounds sustained when his vehicle was attacked by unknown gunmen while returning from his farm along Abuja-Kefi Road. The deceased served as Nigeria's Chief of Defence Staff between 2014 and 2015 under the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. Prior to his death, he was being prosecuted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for allegedly diverting money meant for fighting the Boko Haram insurgency for his personal use. Mr. Bade was accused of misappropriating over $10 million while in office as Chief of Defence Staff. Nigeria is currently facing problems including terrorism, kidnapping, herdsmen and farmer clashes and assassinations. The country's President Muhammadu Buhari has called for an end to insecurity and says he is making efforts to tackle it. However, Amnesty International reports that over 1,800 people have been killed in 2018 alone, and experts say the government needs to do more to keep its citizens' lives and property safe. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
A state funeral has been held for former Ethiopian President Girma Wolde Giorgis, who died at his home at the age of 94. His send-off in the capital was attended by hundreds of dignitaries, including the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and newly appointed President Sahle-Work Zewde. The late president served 12 years in office from 2001 to 2013. After completing both terms, President Girma was replaced by former President Mulatu Tesome, who resigned to make way for the country's first female president. Girma is survived by his 5 children. Speaking at his funeral, incumbent Ethiopian President Sahle-Work Zewde said Wolde Giorgis had served his country through good and bad times.
President Girma Wolde Giorgis has spent most of his life sincerely serving Ethiopia and its people. I would like to express my deepest condolences because of the passing away of President Girma Wolde Giorgis. His Excellency's life narrates a clear and proud history in which he has served his beloved country, Ethiopia, through different ranks. From an ordinary soldier to head of state, he has served his country with ultimate dedication, even under the most hostile situations.
In Tunisia, the Prime Minister has invited Korean businessmen to invest in the North African country. They've been advised to make the most of tax advantages listed in the investment law, asserting the government's commitment to facilitate the opening of the Tunisian business market to Korean and Asian investors.
South Korean Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon has started a three-day visit to Tunisia on Wednesday. Tunisian Premier said the visit will give new momentum to relations and is an opportunity to take cooperation to a higher level in line with the willingness of both governments.
We need to expand the scope of cooperation with South Korea so as to make Tunisia a regional platform for production and export of Korean products to European, Mediterranean and Sub-Saharan countries.
The Tunisian-South Korean Economic Forum opened in Tunis. South Korean Premier affirmed his country's willingness to develop bilateral relations with Tunisia in the fields of infrastructure, renewable energy and setting up of SMEs.
8년 전 이맘때 한 청년의 죽음에서 촉발된
Together, we're developing several projects, including the study of photovoltaic power plants in the south and the project to set up the e-people system to encourage civil participation in fight against corruption, 2015 to 2018. I'm the first Korean Prime Minister to be here. I may be late, but I'll work harder to make up for the slow progress in the development of bilateral relations.
Officials placed emphasis on the need to boost partnership, especially in the field of technology transfer, energizing creation and innovation.
The Korea International Cooperation Agency will encourage investment in promising sectors such as communication technologies and modernizing administration. These sectors will contribute to the economic integration of young people, support startups and create new jobs.
Tunisian Premier affirmed the government's willingness to conclude with South Korea a preferential trade agreement that introduces tariff reductions on defined lists of goods in order to step up trade between the two countries.
The visit of the South Korean Premier is unprecedented in the history of bilateral relations. It takes place ahead of the 50th anniversary of the establishment of Tunisian-South Korean diplomatic relations. The event will be celebrated in March 2019 in Tunis and Seoul. Aden Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
To Burkina Faso now, a press conference held in Ouagadougou sought to assess the progress of various Chinese missions in the country. The meeting was attended by Chinese experts in the fields of medicine, agriculture and vocational training. The country's arable areas are being looked at to increase efficiency and solve food security problems. There have been several courses in various fields, including electricity, automotive mechanics, electromechanics and precision mechanics. During the last quarter of 2018, China donated more than $150,000 for education, health and agriculture, and the Chinese Skills Training Mission intends to invest more than $300,000 in educational facilities and equipment in the coming months.
At Tengendaga University Hospital, we work in the departments of cardiology, pneumology, general surgery, urology and spinal surgery. So far, we've done more than 500 consultations and we've obtained positive results.
The experts organized 13 field training sessions, to which 351 people attended. The works covered the construction of irrigation infrastructure, rice seed production, the development of agricultural mechanization, demonstration of agricultural technology and seed supply.
To provide practical guides for teachers and trainees, skills training experts are deployed in different training centers throughout Ouagadougou, Zinia and Bobo-Dioulasso. To date, we have trained more than 360 participants.
To North Africa now, where Morocco's Princess Lala Hasna chaired the annual charity gala dinner organised by the Embassy of the People's Republic of China and the Moroccan Diplomatic Foundation. More than 400 diplomats, businessmen and artists are supporting projects in the country, focusing on health, education and the training of young girls. The Chinese ambassador in Morocco, Li, expressed his gratitude to the royal family for strengthening Chinese-Morocco friendship. The gathering also celebrated the 60-year anniversary of China-Moroccan diplomatic relations. Various artists from China and Morocco performed during the event.
Morocco views China as a very important country today, and China has expressed the same opinion of the relations with Morocco.
I am very honored that Her Highness Princess Lala Hasna chaired the event. It means not only the friendship shown by the Moroccan royal family, but also the strong will that the two countries want to strengthen civil cooperation and exchanges. I think tonight people who attended this event have contributed to the charity projects in Morocco. China also sent out the message that we want to participate more in charity.
We're going to a short break now. We've got all the business news coming up, including IMF Chief Christine Lagarde praises South Africa's economic reform plan. And the rate of unemployment may be higher in Nigeria, but it grew a lot slower this year.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN. Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in. See, business in Africa is high risk. After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Ucheo Koronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
International Monetary Fund head Christine Lagarde has paid a short visit to South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa in Pretoria. This was ahead of her meeting with SA Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Keganyago. Lagarde is in South Africa as part of her annual tour of African countries. CGTN's Yolisa Njamela has more.
In this press conference, Christine Lagarde started off by giving praise to President Cyril Ramaphosa for all his efforts in ensuring that the struggling South African economy is revived. She especially commended Ramaphosa for his endeavors to root out corruption, citing that this would ultimately improve the state of the local economy.
I'm glad to see that there are people like you and me who still work.
Lagarde is in South Africa as part of a tour of African countries. She told journalists soon after meeting Ramaphosa in Pretoria on Wednesday that her organization has faith in the South African president.
I have been always, ever since I have met him, enthused with his focus on governance, his focus on unleashing the potential of South African growth. And we see it as perfectly suited given the challenges ahead, notably the unemployment of youth in South Africa, the need to increase growth and to actually unleash the potential that that youth has in this beautiful country of yours. And I'm absolutely confident that President Ramaphosa has his eyes on the right objectives and is very, very focused on what he wants to deliver for the country together with his team.
Lagarde believes that Ramaphosa's key tasks are to restore investor confidence, improve growth, and cleanse the government of corruption.
It so happens that the IMF is also focusing significantly on governance, on the fight against corruption, and I had the honor to receive full endorsement of the entire board of the IMF to actually focus on those issues going forward across the globe and on all our membership.
Lagarde recently called on G20 leaders to urgently de-escalate trade tensions and reverse tariff hikes, warning that they risk slowing global growth. The meeting comes just weeks after data showed that South Africa had in fact just come out of technical recession. Lagarde emphasized in her short visit with Ramaphosa that the private sector needs to be a driver for the increased investment into the economy. Yulisa Njomelo for CGTN in Pretoria, South Africa.
Nigeria's unemployment rate stood at 23.1% in the third quarter of 2018. That's up from 18.1% a year earlier. The dismal performance of Africa's biggest economy has been a major talking point in the run-up to elections in February 2019. President Muhammadu Buhari came to power in 2015 with a pledge to fix the economy, but his term has been marred by the country's first recession in a quarter of a century and a sluggish recovery since 2017. Atiku Abubakar, the main opposition candidate in the coming election, has vowed to get Africa's largest economy back on track and to secure jobs for the workforce in a country of roughly 190 million people. Well, Deji Badmus is live for us in Lagos, in Nigeria, with more details on this story. Deji, the Statistics Office notes that while there has been a rise in the rate of unemployment, there is a slowing down in the rate of increase in unemployment. Put this in context for us. Is the economy creating more jobs, or is the population churning out fewer employable people?
Well, I think it's basically that the economy, of course, is creating jobs. It's not as if jobs are not being created. Jobs are being created, but the reverse is that the number of people coming into the labor force now far outweigh the number of jobs that are being created. So jobs are not being created fast enough now to accommodate this huge number of people coming into the labor force. I mean, let me give you a clear example. Take, for instance, the number of graduates churned out by universities in this country, polytechnics, colleges of education, and of course other technical institutions. You have a clear idea of what I'm talking about. Millions of graduates churned out every year, but then you do not have a corresponding creation now, if you like, of jobs in that number. So while jobs are being created, no doubt, the jobs are still not enough to accommodate the number that we're seeing come into the labor force every year. So that's what it's about, and of course it ties down as well to population. We're talking about an economy that is growing at just around 1.8%, and the population is growing at about 3%. So you have a mismatch there, and where you have that kind of mismatch, you definitely would have this kind of situation. Karen? And
Deji, there have been complaints that the statistics body does not have sufficient funds to compile accurate unemployment data. To what extent would you say the released numbers capture the actual position in Nigeria?
Well, first is this complaint has always been there. I mean, the complaint has always been there for a long time now. We know that the Office of the National Bureau of Statistics has not gotten enough funding now to carry out its work. But of course, the Statistician General would tell you that despite those challenges, that the figures, the numbers that the body actually puts out, the numbers are quite reflective of the situation in the country. And there's always been that debate for a long time, even before now. I mean, some people have always argued that these numbers or the statistics are not quite accurate, not reflective, and do not capture the actual situation on ground. That debate will always be there, even if the body was getting enough funding. But the body has always maintained that the figures or the statistics it actually puts out are basically reflective of what the situation is in the country. But that, of course, would not stop the debate from going on.
And finally, Deji, how is the unemployment rate expected to dictate the outcome of elections in February?
Karen, what I can tell you is that, look, it will become a major topic during the campaigns. The campaigns have already begun. Expect, for instance, the opposition to latch onto this, to use it now to hit at the government. Of course, the government too will want to defend its position. It definitely will be a campaign topic. But whether this would determine the outcome of next year's election is difficult to tell because, look, it all depends on the quality of the electorate. It depends on what the electorate actually would be taking to the polls. I cannot confidently tell you that this would determine the outcome of that election, but it definitely would be a very huge campaign topic among politicians because you would expect that the opposition, for instance, would want to take clear advantage of this. The same thing happened in 2007 when this government was not in power and it was in the opposition. It took advantage of the statistics released at the time. So, but it's difficult to tell if it would determine the outcome of the election or what impact it would have actually on that election.
All right, well, thank you very much for that update. That was Deji Badmus there, live for us in Lagos in Nigeria. Over in Egypt, the central bank will start printing plastic money instead of the paper notes that are currently in use. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has the details.
Most of the Egyptian pound's notes are made from paper, but from 2020, these paper money will cease to exist in Egypt. It will be replaced by plastic notes.
It's a bit funny. Reminds me of the money in the Monopoly game we play. Real money is coins or paper, I guess.
It's a new idea, plastic. Yes, the paper notes get easily damaged, but how can I fold plastic money in my purse? I never saw plastic notes before.
There are only 44 countries currently using plastic notes, but experts say plastic is a better option than paper.
Number one, high quality, comparing with paper banknote. Number two, durable goods. The life for plastic money may be twice comparing with paper money. Number three, to reduce the hygiene effect and the negative impacts for paper money in health.
The plastic money can also be recycled. The central bank says it has purchased the specialized printing machine and will be installed soon at the new administrative capital. Experts calmed any fears of currency destabilization once the new notes are introduced in the market.
The change of form of plastic money in Egypt, no or little impact on the value of Egyptian pound or value of the currency.
Although the new Egyptian pound will be made of plastic, not paper, but the central bank says Egyptians will not feel much difference because the design of the currency will remain as it is. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
The carrier that's home to Africa's biggest fleet, Ethiopian Airlines, is expected to post a full-year profit of over $200 million. At the moment, the carrier flies to 120 destinations worldwide, and it's been aggressively buying stakes in African airliners, which it plans to relaunch. CGTN's Giram Chala filed this report.
Achieving its 120th destination in 5 continents across the world by resuming its flights to Russia this month, 2018 was yet another successful year for Ethiopian Airlines. It's expected to profit more than $200 million this year.
Ethiopia's international image has improved tremendously. Ethiopia's international PR has improved tremendously, especially since the last 6 months with the current reform and changes undertaken by His Excellency Prime Minister Dr. Abiy and his cabinet. So this has attracted the attention of the world. So quite significant number of people from all over the world are interested to visit Ethiopia, to invest in Ethiopia, and to do business with Ethiopia.
72 years in the business and still flying higher and higher. Under government ownership, Ethiopian Airlines is not only the oldest African airliner, but also the most successful one too. It has proved enterprise can be profitable while under government ownership.
We see the last 10 years, out of the 72 years history of the airline, if you divide it into two, the first 60 years are the first 62 years and then the last decade, it shows you that the airline has achieved remarkable growth in terms of its performance, in terms of its size now. In Vision 2025, we've made the airline now the largest airline in Africa, the most profitable, and the fastest growing airline in Africa, if not in the world.
The continuous profit of the airliner is said to support the overall Ethiopian economic growth. The flour sector, for instance, has taken advantage of ET's performance.
The flour sector is generating more than $200 million foreign exchange. So our profitability, our sound balance sheet is enabling us to support the sector. Had it been purely on economics, on a business relationship point of view, we would have increased the price and the flour exporters wouldn't have been able to afford it.
Ethiopian Airlines Group now co-owns several airliners across Africa, such as Askai in Togo and Air Malawi. And ET is also helping relaunch Air Chad, Guinea and Zambia. Ethiopia's flag carrier now owns more than 110 state-of-the-art planes. The young fleet size has names like Boeing, Airbus and Bombardier aircrafts. With 22 domestic destinations, ET saves foreign currency from leaving the country by providing service through local currency. That money is estimated to be equivalent to around $300 million every year. Group Data CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Don't go away, lots more to come after the break.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Tanzania's biggest singing talent search has come to an end, with the winner being rewarded with a cash prize and a record deal. 25-year-old engineering student Serafina Michael emerged victorious. The Bongo Star show aims to discover the best Tanzanian singer through a series of nationwide auditions. 2018 saw the program complete its 9th season. CGTN's Daniel Kijo has more.
This is a finale of Bongo Star Search, a TV show where only the strongest musical talent in Tanzania can make it all the way. Bongo Star Search first premiered on television in 2006. Since then, it has produced musical stars that have entertained millions and allowing over 50,000 youth to reach for their dreams. Rated as one of the most favored TV programs in Tanzania, the founder, Rita Paulson, says the judges are looking for only the best.
For the vocal ability, we're looking for someone who has good vocals, personality. You know, you have to be able to like performed. You know, stage presence, I must say, stage presence, vocal ability, and good looks. That I have to be honest.
After weeks of regional auditions that took the judges to different parts of the country, fans from all over East Africa get to see if their favorite singer takes home the top prize of $25,000. After 3 months of putting on increasingly confident performances and surviving each elimination, the contestants must now sing for their lives, and each one has an equal chance of being crowned Tanzania's top musical talent of the year. To date, more than 10,000 people have attended the auditions nationally, and out of all of them, it's Sarafina this time who gets a first place.
And I thank the owner of the show, Madam Rita, plus the organization for supporting my talent and being able to go all the way through till winning. I'm very excited and I'm very humbled and I'm very honored.
Producers say that times have been hard in the entertainment industry across the continent, where most talent and reality TV shows have had to close down, largely due to lack of sponsorship and funding. However, the fans of the show say it's still relevant.
Sarafina was just a student. She was not known. She knew how to sing and you saw her win the award. Who would have known her if she hadn't gone through BSS? But now she's known.
Now Sarafina starts her musical journey with a record deal already secured, hoping that she can follow in the footsteps of other show winners who eventually become some of Africa's biggest stars. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
We're going to a short break now. We've got all the sport coming up, including Felton Kamagambo elected new Zimbabwe Football Association president.
Oh.